Welcome back to Matthew Watley's TKN Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Darrell Williams. You all know here at the TKN Leadership Podcast, our goal is to help you move your leadership to the next level. And we do that by having conversations with pastors and leaders and thought leaders and influencers from all over the country and all over the globe. As the host, it's my job to sit in this chair and ask the questions that you would ask if you were sitting with some of these great minds. And today we have one of the great minds and great preachers of our time joining us. We have the Reverend Dr. Tisha Dixon-Williams, the senior pastor of the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, New York. Today we're going to have a conversation about what it's like to be a woman in leadership, what it's like to pastor outside of your context, and what it's like to preach from your authentic personality. So join me today as we welcome the Reverend Dr. Tisha Dixon-Williams. Dr. Tish, good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And we are excited to be here with you. Now, I gave the audience just a brief introduction. Tell us who you are.
So I am Tisha Dixon-Williams. I am a woman, a wife, a pastor, a preacher, an author, innovator, creator, Brooklyn baddie, and all-around dope chick.
Now, y'all, we're just going to be a little transparent. We are both from Brooklyn, so y'all going to get a lot of Brooklyn in this conversation
Prepare to be
today.
sick of us.
Prepare to be sick of
Prepare to be sick of us.
Yes, indeed. So you are the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton. How long have you been there?
I have been pastoring for 6 years.
6 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're the first woman pastor in the 100-year history of the church?
100-year history of the church, yes.
What has that been like? Because one of the things that we deal with in this world is how people see women in leadership. And there can be challenges with that in the secular world, but absolutely challenges with that in the church world. So what's it been like stepping into the authority and the mantle that comes with being the pastor?
So it has been good, actually. Okay. I think that when First Baptist elected me to the office of pastor, they were ready for a woman pastor. They were ready for a shift. They were ready for a change. And so that has been really, really good. I think it's also, for me, I made a decision when I was called to ministry that I would never defend my call to ministry as a woman.
Yes.
I always tell people that I was like, don't defend your call because it wasn't a conference call. It's between you and God. It wasn't for everybody. And so I think walking into it with that mindset that if God called me, I belong here, helped a lot. And so I think sometimes things are difficult when we spend our time defending instead of doing the work. And so I had just made a decision I would do the work, and that me being a woman would hold no bearing on my ability to lead and my position as the pastor. But I've also found that being a woman, there are superpowers that we have.
Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I think most people would say that women being emotional or leading with emotion is more a deficiency than a dynamic part of our character. And I beg to differ. I'm a person who leads with emotion. And what I have found is that it's my emotion that makes me a really good pastor.
Okay.
My ability to be empathetic, to feel, to, as we heard today, sit with the people for a little while before making decisions. I think that's my strength. And so whereas some people might look at emotion as a weakness, I've looked at emotional intelligence as one of my greatest gifts.
Give us some examples of what it looks like to lead with emotion, because many times leaders will say, we'll try to be clinical. We'll try to be very, I don't bring this is an intellectual exercise. There's going to be a certain amount of just clarity and cleanliness and sterility to what I do. But emotion can be messy.
Yes.
Emotion is red-blooded, not cold-blooded. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to lead in that way.
So to lead in that way means to ask questions.
Okay.
To lead in that way means to do your best to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with your people. To be emotionally intelligent enough to say, I'm not just preaching because a lexicon tells me what to preach, but rather, what was my conversation like with Sister Johnson this week? Or what is, what are the children, what's happening in the school district this week that I may need to speak to for the children? What are some issues the women are facing? What's happening in this election that I need to speak to? all of that to me is emotionally driven. I try to put myself in this place of the people. I remember in pandemic, Dr. Billy Curtis said it this way on a platform. He said, this is a really great time to preach. He said, because for the first time, the pastor doesn't have to figure out what to preach. We are all going through the same thing.
At the same time.
And so you know what to preach. God has sort of handed you subject and content on a platter. And I think that's also how I've tried to lead in my preaching. What is happening? I have my finger on the pulse of the people and my finger on the pulse of America. What is happening and what do I need to speak to?
Gotcha.
Which alters your preaching, or at least it should.
Yeah.
So you cannot, to me, it's very difficult to go to the desk with your prepared packaged message and there's just been a school shooting. So at the very least, there's got to be one sentence in there that speaks to where we are, what's happening, and how we feel about it. And then being transparent and vulnerable enough to share with the congregation how you're feeling about it. And so that's what I mean when I say leading with emotion, preaching with emotional intelligence.
So being a full person, bringing all of who you are.
All of it. So yes, bringing all of it to you, who you are. There's a quote that says, nothing is wasted in God's economy. Yeah. And I always relate that to David. Mm-hmm. So if we look at David's trajectory, his whole story in the Bible, and I did this as an aside. So I do this. Sometimes I apply business tools to my preaching. Sure. And one of the things I love to do is SWOT analysis on biblical personalities. Yeah. So SWOT analysis in business is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so I'll take a biblical personality and do that in order to better kind of sort of find out how they tick. And I was going to be doing a platform, and the question was David a narcissist? And so I did a SWOT analysis on David. Sure. And what I found out is, sure, he had strengths, he had weaknesses, he had opportunities, and he had threats. The greatest list of all of those turned out to be his opportunities. Okay. And what I learned about David is that David never wasted an opportunity to praise God, to get what he wanted, to get what he needed. He was an opportunist in the best possible way. And so his list was a mile long. And what I also learned is David used everything that God gave him to do that. Mm-hmm. Gifted singer. Well, let me sing a song to calm Saul down. Yeah. Gifted warrior. Let me, knock Goliath between the eyes, Mm-hmm. Gifted strategist. Mm-hmm. Even his charisma, even his charm, to the point where God created a being that even God couldn't resist, a man after his own heart. Yeah. And so I learned that he may not have been a narcissist, but he was certainly an opportunist. Sure. But he teaches us a valuable lesson. It all comes to the desk. Mm-hmm. It all comes to our preaching. It all comes in leadership. You bring all of that to you. And when we do that, we just have a name for it. It's called authenticity. And there you have it. Yeah, and there you have it. Speaking of authenticity, some would say that you pastor out of context. And by out of context, I simply mean you're from Brooklyn. You're from Bushwick, Brooklyn. I'm from Bushwick, Brooklyn. You pastor in Bridgehampton, New York. Yep. For those who don't know the geography of that, Brooklyn, home of Biggie, greatest rapper. Home of Jay-Z, greatest rapper alive. But that is inner city. Yes. That is inner city. That is African-American, Caribbean, West African, a very specific context. Where you pastor now, Bridgehampton, is in the Hamptons. Many people have heard of the Hamptons. That's where they have the great white parties every 4th of July. Yes. It's a moneyed area by reputation, but the people who maintain that area and keep the Hamptons going while the wealthy are not there because it's a vacation community for them, are your ordinary Joes and Joannes. Yep. But you're a city girl out in what is really a country and vacation area. Mm-hmm. What's it like pastoring in a context that's not native to you? A learning experience. Sure. And a great learning curve. Oh. I remember having even been in that area, sort of being a resident of that area, not in Bridgehampton, but an area called Sag Harbor for 20 plus years. Even that did not prepare me for being there full time. Oh. There's a difference between coming in and out as one of those people who visit in the summer versus someone who lives there full time. And the people that you talked about are the working class people, the staples of the Hamptons community. Those are the people that I pastor. Mm-hmm. It was a learning curve and community in a very different way.
Okay.
Brooklyn is community for sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
Come on. Everybody wants, everybody's like, I wish I had the confidence of somebody who's from Brooklyn. Like, being as confident in yourself as somebody is from Brooklyn. Right? But what I found is community is different. It's more intimate. Yeah. It's smaller, insular in some ways. The Hamptons is a huge, when I tell you, I'm so grateful. To wake up every day there is wonderful. People always say, I feel so bad for you. You live so far away. I always say, don't cry for me, Argentina.
Like, no, y'all don't know.
I am fine.
Y'all don't know.
Yeah, like birds, I feel like Snow White most of the time. Birds wake me up singing. It's like bunnies are scurrying across the lawn. Like, it really is that. Wild turkeys just walking around. So it really is that. I'm not exaggerating. I'm 3 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean. It really is God's country and a great place to do ministry for someone like me who finds God in nature.
Okay.
So great place for me. But the learning curve came in that, in Brooklyn, this, you really don't run into somebody unless you want to run into somebody. Yeah. Folks don't just pop by the house, so to speak. And so I had to get used to that in the Bridgehampton community, that people love access to their pastor.
Sure.
They, were very comfortable just stopping by the house and those kind of things. They're kind of trying to learning how to balance that dynamic between being a pastor and also a private person.
Yeah.
But what I have come to learn in that also is just the care of the community. They care about you. They care about you. And I remember when I first got there finding, no exaggeration, fresh eggs on my step or corn on my step, or just these offerings of harvest and abundance of food.
Just taking care of their pastor.
Just taking care
Just
of
want to take care of the pastor.
Pastor, we made, not even when you come to our home for Thanksgiving, we made you Thanksgiving. Sure. I literally one year, one of my members made from the Kool-Aid to the desserts, the whole Thanksgiving dinner, and hand delivered it to us.
Brought it all over to you.
And so there is no replacing that level of care.
Yeah.
And that's what comes with the Bridgehampton community.
A friend of mine pastored in a more rural context where it's a hunting community. And one of the things that he found at his door one day was half an elk that had been quartered, cut, because one of his members was a hunter. He was like, Pastor, I bagged a big one today, so I bought you some venison. And he half an elk.
And that was a way of showing love.
And that was a way of showing love and appreciation.
And I love being loved that way.
Absolutely.
I think it's awesome. And coming from Brooklyn, the love is still palpable, and the love is there in Brooklyn. I mean, We're tight. The love is just a little more distant. The love is not, you won't find it on your doorstep because, you may not find it on your doorstep.
You know the quote, spread love. It's the Brooklyn way.
It's the Brooklyn way. And Brooklyn people are very loving and caring. Absolutely. And we care for each other. And I say this, and it is no disrespect to any other state or any other place, but if there is ever crisis, New York is where I want to be.
Yeah.
New Yorkers have a way of taking care of each other. We saw it in the Trade Center. Yeah. We've seen it in various blackouts, terrorist attacks. We may not say hello to each other every day.
Well, we're busy.
We're moving fast. But we take really great care of each other. And we take great care of people who come to New York.
We do.
If you are a real New Yorker, let me be clear. I'm not talking about people who come to New York. I'm talking about people who were born in New York. I always say this, a New Yorker will never leave someone on a corner looking around lost.
No.
A true New Yorker will always say, where are you going?
Now, we will say it in a way that makes you feel like
and that's what
you're
I
being
said.
threatened.
We'll say it in a way that makes you feel like you're being threatened. You're a nuisance. It's annoying me that you're standing here looking around. What are you doing? And we might be doing that too. Might be checking you out.
Yeah, we might be doing that too. But we are going to tell you how to get to where you were trying to go.
And we're going to say it once. And we're going to say it fast.
We're going to say it exactly.
And you got to catch it the first time we say it. Because we're probably walking and talking as we what you want to do is you want to go to then you want to do, all right, good. You good?
And if you're on the corner, we halfway to the street, you still sitting there, we're going to look back and go, that way.
Right. No, go to this. And so that's the difference in the context. Yeah. I think the care is very intimate. And I think the other is the care is a little more distant.
More arm's length.
Little more arm's length. But care nonetheless. And so I love being in Bridgehampton. I do.
Now, you are an amazing preacher. You are an absolutely amazing preacher. Your sermon, The Otis of the Old Testament.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing sermon. You showed a clip from the Temptations movie that everybody knows. Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. But what I loved was, it's a great sermon, but it was unique to you. We live in a world where I'm dating myself with this, but I'm old enough where you needed cassettes to hear other preachers. So you wanted to go get the tapes and you would listen to them. Yes. Now in a world of YouTube and TikToks and clips, we have access to everybody. But what I love about your preaching is it's not like anybody.
Oh, thank you.
If somebody, because we've seen imitations of people. Sure. Your preaching is not like anybody. It's uniquely Tisha Dixon-Williams. How did you develop and really walk in your authentic voice?
There's a couple of things. The first thing is we go back to nothing is wasted in God's economy. Yeah. I used to be an actress. I was an actor. Yes. So I'm theater trained.
Okay.
That helps a lot with presentation and how to present. The second thing is I was a pageant.
Really?
I was a pageant girl.
You've been on stage your whole life.
I've been on stage my whole life since I was 14 years old.
Okay.
And so I think that bringing your whole self, I had no idea what God was doing.
Sure.
But all of those experiences led to that, and all of that comes to the desk with me.
Okay.
And so I have learned from the pageant world that even when you don't think you got it, you just smile away. Mm-hmm. And I have learned from the acting world about presence and drama and storytelling.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be an EGOT by now, I promise you. I really did. I thought I was going to be an EGOT by now. And God said, you will tell a story. You're just going to tell my story. Mm. And so kind of sort of capturing those lessons. What I've always had since I was a child is a very big imagination. My brain doesn't stop. You know that movie, Beautiful Mind? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
all going on in there. Gotcha.
All the time. And so preaching helps me really channel that. And so a couple of years ago, I was asked by Hampton University as part of their Compelling Preaching Initiative. They asked me if I would teach or speak on creative preaching. I'm known as a creative preacher.
Sure.
And I said, okay. But then when I thought about it, I was like, I don't know how to tell somebody how I preach. It's like going to your grandma, how do you make cornbread? Well, you put a little of this and you put a little of that. And nope, you put a dash of this. I'm like, what's a dash? What's a pinch? What's a smidgen? That's how I felt. I was like, I don't know how to, I can only show, I don't even know I can show you. I just don't know. But I say that to say it challenged me in the best possible way to really think about,
sure,
how do I preach? If someone asked me the question like you're asking me, what would I say? I started with the cross. I started with the vision of the cross to say, okay, well, what are some preaching styles out there? I know we're called to preach vertically. Mm-hmm. Bring people to Christ, Christ to people, bring people to God, vertical. But then we're also called to preach horizontally, how we are in community with each other. What does this mean for each other? How do we connect as people of Christ? And when I did that and I literally drew the cross, what I saw was I didn't see the cross in as much as I saw all these empty quadrants around the cross.
Interesting.
And I said to myself, well, if we're connecting people to God and we're connecting to each other, what about all these other people in these blank spaces? Somebody's sitting in these empty quadrants. Mm. And I realized in that moment, that is how I preach. I preached the quadrants in the cross.
Gotcha.
And I have created a framework, and my style of preaching is what I have named or coined diagonal preaching.
Okay.
I am a diagonal preacher.
Tell us what diagonal preaching is.
So diagonal preaching means if you have the 4 sections of the cross, I preach to those sections. Mm-hmm. And diagonal preaching is Christ-centered preaching because you can't go diagonally without passing through the cross. Mm-hmm. And I also have discovered when Jesus did his trial sermon and he read the scroll, he said, this is what I have come to do. I've come to preach good news to the poor, mm-hmm. to give sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, the release of the captives, release of the prisoners. Jesus preached diagonally. Yeah. In that one verse, Jesus is teaching us, I preach to the people nobody else is thinking about. And the only way to do that is to do it creatively. I have to tell a story. So in preaching the Otis of the Old Testament, I reached a whole generation that knows that clip. They may not know anything else about that movie or the Temptations,
but they know ain't nobody come to see you,
Otis, right? And so preaching creatively and preaching diagonally, I'm targeting 3 different types of people that I find in our congregations. The first group of people are your corner people. Corner people literally sit in the corner they sit in the furthest seat in the back. Anything in the corner can be seen, but doesn't want to be seen.
Yeah.
So my job as a preacher, preaching diagonally, my job is to pull you out of a corner. Here's why. Because the next tier of people are the crack people. I need to stop saying that, but people in the cracks. The cracks are different from the corners in that people in cracks can see you, but you can't see them. Mm-hmm. So if you think about a rodent or a bug, they are in the cracks, so they cannot be seen. Mm-hmm. But as soon as they know it's safe to come out, they do.
They come right
There
out.
are people in our congregations just like that. They are in the cracks. They are watching us, and they want to know, is it safe to come out? I try to preach in such a way that I let them know it's safe to come out. The last group of people are what I call crevasse people. There are people in the crevasses of our congregation, not to be confused with crevices. So a crevasse is what you find on Mount Everest. Okay. I'm an Everest enthusiast. And there are crevasses in the ice faults that are so huge. A crevasse is a huge gaping hole. Mm-hmm. They're so big, or a fracture in the ice, that if you fall in those, you'll never be heard from again.
Oh, wow.
Much like a black hole.
Gotcha.
And it's very difficult for a rescue mission to even occur because no one knows the depth of some of these crevasses. There are people in our congregation in crevasses whom we have lost to black holes that we need to try to pull out. Because if I can get you while you're in a corner, maybe I can keep you from falling through the cracks. And if I can get you while you're in the cracks, maybe I won't lose you to a black hole.
Awesome.
That is how I try to preach. And so if we look at the Otis of the Old Testament last night, seniors are very much people in the cracks. They're watching everything. Are they going to honor our traditions? Are they going to still, do we still have relevance in this congregation? Do we still matter? So now if I'm preaching to seniors who are often in the cracks, you hear the Temptations, you got to wake up.
Mm-hmm. They're my people. That's my
generation. That's what I grew up on. And actually, one of the pastors last night said, Tish, while you were preaching, the man behind us was singing the songs and saying who the lead was before you could even say it. He's like, oh, she's talking my language. But now I've reached the seniors who often feel devalued in this time in churches. And so if I'm looking at a corner person, if I begin to talk about the election, maybe someone is sitting in the corner feeling the pressure and the weight of what just happened. But if I begin to talk about how, well, maybe black women are the sham gods of the Old Testament, that kind of thing. Now they feel like she sees
Somebody
me.
sees me.
Somebody sees me. I'm not just back here in vain. Somebody sees me. And so that's and that's how I preach. Is I always preach with the thought, who am I talking to? And I always say this. I say, if you have to answer this question. So after you've put everything together and done everything, the question on your mind should be, what's that got to do with my light bill? Because that's what somebody wants to know. Yeah, I get it. God is great and I get in heaven and everything. But what's that got to do with the nasty now and now?
One of my preaching professors said, you got to answer the so what.
The so what? That's it.
That's great.
And my so what
so
is,
what?
Right. What that got to do with my light bill? Because guess what? I still got bills and I'm still sad and I'm still tired and I'm working like a dog. What does this mean for me right now?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Now, let me ask you this. You're in a still male-dominated profession.
Yes.
The doors are opening, not as open as they should be, but they're opening, but it's male-dominated. But for men, it's easy for us to find community and mentorship just through volume. What do you do as a woman pastor, as a woman leader, to find community, to find other people who are in the fight, in the struggle, to gird each other up, pick each other up, and really be in community and pour into each other? How do you do that?
I have the best support system on the planet. I always say your support system could never. I have the best support system on the planet, made up of sisters and brothers who are in the clergy space. I think right now is a great time to be a woman in ministry. No, every door is not open. But what I have found among the community of sisters in ministry right now is that we support each other and we ride for each other. You have women like Shalita Fomby. You have women like Jennifer Watley Maxwell. You have women like Kelly Farrow and Sheree Jones, and just my sisters who rally, who show up, who care a lot more about whether I'm hydrated than whether or not I'm preaching. Are you taking care of yourself? And I have the same thing on the other end with the brethren in the community. And so I'm super, super blessed. My philosophy is go where the love is. You don't waste your time going where the love is not. You go where the love is, especially when we're called to a work that demands so much outpouring of love from us. You've got to go where you feel supported and refueled. And I'm so grateful for that. I also don't operate in a preaching bubble, if that makes sense. I have people that I sermonize with. I have friends that I'll call and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? I have friends, help me with this because I see a social justice lens here, but you're so much better at that than I am. Can you help me with that? I don't believe that we are called or supposed to sermonize in a bubble. I think we are supposed to do that in community with each other because we all have different perspectives, different talents, different gifts that we can bring to that.
Sure.
And so that's one of the ways I look for people who are smarter and better at stuff than me.
Yeah.
I am very clear. I am a very self-aware person. I understand. I've done a SWOT analysis on myself. And I know my weaknesses and I know my areas of opportunity. And I'm learning and have learned to surround myself with people who are better at certain things than I am and not having an ego about it. I'm very clear. Yeah, I'm not good at that, but you are. Will you support me? Will you mentor me in that? And I also believe in peer mentorship. Yes, I have mentors who are certainly more seasoned, experienced than me, but I also have peer mentors where we mentor each other. And that helps me a great deal. Preachers need other preachers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. We're running up on time.
Yeah.
What do you do for self-care?
Oh, so self-care, let me explain a little bit of my philosophy on self-care. I don't believe that self-care is manicures and massages. I think that's maintenance.
Okay.
For me. For me. Self-care to me is living a life that doesn't require self-care. Building a life for yourself where self-care can be just that, a luxury and not a necessity.
Gotcha.
So I think discipline is self-care. And this is a new one for me. Discipline is self-care. That you love yourself and care for yourself enough to say, no, I've eaten enough of that for today. I'm not going to do that. Or I really want to stay up and do this, but my body needs rest. I'm going to sleep. Or saying, I have an hour of extra time. I'm not going to fill it with anything and have the discipline not to do that. So I think discipline is a form of self-care. I'm on this journey right now. I think I recently posted this. I think I'm on what you on is self-care. I think not overextending yourself if you don't have to, meeting people kind of right where they are, I believe is self-care. So self-care to me is very untraditional. I think the Delta Lounge is self-care. It's like, get me to it. I'm on there. Where is the lounge? Okay, B32, I'm there. I think that's self-care. I think it's living a life, positioning yourself to be so proactive that you're not reactive and require so much self-care. And the last one I will say is listening to your body is self-care. The body tells the story, and there's a great book titled The Body Keeps the Score. The body will often tell you before the mind does and before the heart does. So if you walk into a space and you immediately tense up, yeah, the body's saying, ain't nothing good ever happened in this space. Let's get out of here. So listening to your body. Does it need water? Does it need juice? Does it need a donut? Because that's okay too. Listen to your body.
There's nothing wrong with it.
My body says I need Twizzlers every now and then. And that's okay. But listening to your body. So all of that and surrounding yourself with really good people.
Sure.
All of those things are self-care. I know manicures and massages, and I like those things too. But in reality, we don't often leave much better after we have those things. It is temporary at best.
It's an hour off.
Then you're right back. And the whole time you're laying there being massaged, you're still thinking about everything that's happening. And so, yeah, I think self-care, boundaries are self-care. And who you surround yourself with is self-care. That's self-care to me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This has been amazing. Thank you.
This has been Pastor Tisha Dixon-Williams. Listen, sometimes you just need to sit down with somebody and chop it up and talk life. I know for all of you leaders, this has been a real in-depth journey into the life of a leader. And sometimes we just need to see what other people are doing, how they're doing it, and how we can apply it and pick up tips and tricks for our lives. You know, here at the TKN Leadership Podcast, our goal is to help you get to your next level of leadership. And I think for a bunch of you today, you found some steps to get to your next level. So make sure you keep climbing those steps and taking those steps. And we'll see you next time right here on Matthew Watley's TKN Leadership Podcast.